Since we always talk about the US housing market, home prices, rent crashes, and what's happening in cities across America, today let's talk about our own backyard. Not a random neighborhood or a suburban development, but the most famous residence in the country, the White House. And right now, it's under renovation. Not just a touch-up or a historical restoration, but a remodel led by President Donald Trump. One that's turning one of America's most historic wings into a construction zone. Preservationists are calling it destructive. Historians say it's erasing a chapter of US history. And millions of Americans are furious. Why? Because what's happening here isn't just about a house. It's about power, legacy, and the fight between private ambition and public heritage. Today, we're diving into why the ongoing White House remodel is sparking outrage across America and what it reveals about how we treat our most historic homes. Welcome to EstateScope, the channel where we expose the hidden forces shaping today's real estate markets. From climate risk to insurance pullouts to overlooked government policies, we break down what's really behind the headlines and what it means for your investments, your home, and your future. If you're into real estate with a twist of investigative reporting, hit like, tap subscribe, and ring the bell icon so you never miss a story that could impact where you live, what you buy, or how you build. Now, let's get into what might be one of the most overlooked real estate catastrophes of the decade. Number 1. What's being changed? And why it matters. The project began quietly. No public announcement, no press briefing, and no consultation with the preservation community. Then, in late summer, satellite photos and insider reports confirmed what many feared. The east wing of the White House was being torn down. This part of the building isn't just another office space. The east wing was added in 1942 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. A wartime expansion meant to house staff and wartime communications. It also contains the offices of the First Lady and the White House visitors entrance, the public's main gateway to America's most symbolic home. According to The Guardian and AP News, the current renovation plan includes a 90,000 square foot ballroom expansion estimated to cost between $250 and $300 million. Supporters call it modernization. Critics call it demolition disguised as progress. Even more controversial is how it's being paid for. Reports suggest private donors are funding portions of the project, raising serious questions about influence, transparency, and accountability. Normally, major changes to the White House require approval from preservation boards and public oversight. This time, that process was skipped. For preservationists, this isn't just a renovation. It's erasure. They argue the East Wing holds cultural weight that can't be rebuilt. It's where generations of Americans entered the White House for the first time. It's where history, from state dinners to civil rights meetings, left its mark in the very architecture. As one historian told the Washington Post, "When you alter the White House, you alter the story of the presidency itself." The scale of this remodel, its secrecy, its cost, and its disregard for historic preservation, has made it one of the most divisive building projects in recent U.S. history. And for many Americans, it hits a deeper nerve. Number 2. The public backlash. And what it says about America's relationship with power and property. When news of the demolition broke, the reaction was immediate and emotional. Across social media, preservation groups and ordinary citizens flooded timelines with one message: you don't destroy history to make space for luxury. Polling cited by Politico shows that a majority of Americans oppose the project, with bipartisan frustration over the secrecy and cost. Protesters have gathered outside the gates. Petition drives from preservationists have drawn tens of thousands of signatures. Even some longtime White House staffers, speaking anonymously, have described the project as gutting the heart of the people's house. For historians, the anger goes beyond the physical structure. It's about what this remodel represents, a pattern that echoes through America's housing market itself. In city after city, we've watched heritage traded for high-end development and public trust exchanged for private profit. Think about it. In Miami, in Austin, in New York, we've seen luxury towers replace landmarks, historic neighborhoods bulldozed for modern glass and steel. The White House renovation feels like that same story. Only this time, it's happening at the very center of American power. The symbolism hits hard. If even the White House can be reshaped by money, what does that say about how we value our shared spaces? About what we preserve? And what we're willing to lose? As one preservation advocate told PBS, when you change a home like this, you're not just rebuilding walls, you're rewriting the nation's memory. For millions of Americans watching, the outrage isn't only about architecture, it's about identity. A reminder that homes, whether humble or historic, hold meaning that can't be priced or replaced. And that's the deeper question behind the anger. If the most famous home in America isn't safe from overdevelopment, what hope do the rest of us have? Number 3. The bigger picture. What this means for preservation power and the future of American homes. Every renovation tells a story. Not just about a building, but about the people shaping it. In cities across America, we've seen the same story play out in different forms. A historic district replaced by high-rises, a neighborhood swallowed by speculation, an old home stripped of its character for resale value. The White House remodel feels like all those battles rolled into one, only magnified under the brightest spotlight possible. The message it sends is unsettling, that even the most sacred spaces can be rewritten by those with enough money, ambition, or power. Preservationists warn this could set a precedent, not just for government property, but for how the nation views any piece of history that stands in the way of profit. Once a building like the East Wing is reimagined as a private project, the line between public heritage and personal legacy starts to blur. But there's another side to this story, one of opportunity. Every outcry, every protest, every petition is proof that Americans still care about their built history, that they see these walls not as relics, but as chapters in an ongoing story worth protecting. Maybe that's what this controversy ultimately exposes: the tension between preserving what we inherited and building what comes next. It's a tension that defines not just Washington, D.C., but every housing market we cover on this channel. Because whether it's a luxury condo in Austin or a ballroom in the White House, the question is always the same: who gets to decide what's worth saving? Number 4. Tech, big money, and influence. Who's funding the remodel? Behind the cranes and construction fences lies one of the more provocative parts of this story. Who is writing the check? According to The Guardian, major tech, defense, and crypto corporations, including Apple, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Palantir, have pledged donations toward the estimated $300 million remodel of the East Wing. What does this mean? That a structure once symbolizing the people's house is now backed by tech giants and crypto firms, blurring lines between public heritage and private capital. As one architectural historian told Fast Company, this project and what is happening serves as a reminder of how far that exemption can be taken. In other words, when the most iconic home in America becomes a marquee for big money, the consequences ripple into how we view development, housing, and legacy in our cities. Number 5. Voices of the people. Testimonials and reactions. If we zoom out from the towers and the donor lists, we find voices that feel the change personally. Preservationist Brian Greene had told Fast Company, "It's hard to look and see a wrecking ball hitting it." One anonymous White House staffer, quoted in Politico, described the mood as gutting the heart of the people's house. On the tech side, one donor event attendee reported hearing from the president, I was going to build a beautiful, beautiful ballroom like I have at Mar-a-Lago. This is from the Washington Post. Step outside the gates, and the voices are raw. One DC resident told PBS, "I walk by this place every morning. It used to feel like ours. Now, it feels like theirs." A White House staffer described the scene to Politico. "They're gutting the heart of the people's house." On social media, users call it heritage theft and history on auction. And even some construction workers, speaking anonymously to Reuters, admitted they felt uneasy, proud to work on something historic, but unsure what kind of history they're building. The outrage has spread far beyond DC. Preservationists in cities like Boston, Charleston, and Savannah are now pushing for stronger protections for local landmarks. These reactions show different layers of the emotion involved: history lost, trust broken, ambition unchecked. Relate this back to your audience. Think about renters, homeowners watching their neighborhoods shift, historic homes being torn down for redevelopment. When people see the White House, they're seeing a mirror of the battles happening in their own cities. For many, the sentiment is, if this can happen here, imagine what's happening elsewhere with less spotlight. Number 6. Preservation versus progress. The debate. Not everyone agrees it's a disaster. From the administration's perspective, the case is straightforward. The East Wing's infrastructure was aging, accessibility was limited, and updates were inevitable. Officials point out that past presidents have made major changes. From Harry S. Truman's complete reconstruction in 1948 to 1952, to John F. Kennedy's redesign of the Rose Garden, to Ronald Reagan's modernization efforts. According to the White House's own briefing, for more than a century, U.S. presidents have been renovating, expanding, and modernizing the White House to meet the needs of the present day. Supporters argue that with event seating capacities half what modern state dinners demand, and aging mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems beneath the East Wing, the project was overdue. The promise: a ballroom capable of hosting 650 to 900 guests, improved accessibility, and updated safety features. But critics argue this time is different. Not because the building needed work, but because of the motivation, scale, and process behind the change. As noted by the Society of Architectural Historians, SAH, the White House is one of the most important historic buildings in the United States. Such a significant change should follow a rigorous and deliberate design and review process. Society of Architectural Historians. Specific criticisms include: the nearly 90,000 square foot ballroom will nearly double the footprint of the 55,000 square foot ballroom FT White House residence itself, an imbalance many preservationists say is alarming. Demolition began before formal plans were filed with oversight bodies, such as the National Capital Planning Commission, NCPC, raising questions about transparency and legal compliance. Private donor funding, including major tech firms, has blurred lines between public institution and private interest. Some critics describe it as precedent-setting for how national landmarks can be restructured under influence. One way to frame the central question: it's not about whether the White House should evolve. It's about who decides how, and who benefits when it does. For your audience, this debate touches directly on your core theme: homes, heritage, and power. When a country's most symbolic home becomes a stage for private ambition under the guise of modernization, the ripple effect reaches every city skyline and every planned development. And while the update may be framed as progress, many believe it risks rewriting not only a building story, but the story of the presidency, the public trust, and how we value the places we share.
Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, please like, comment, and share to help others stay informed. And don't forget to visit EstateScope on YouTube for the full video and more real estate insights.